Hey everyone, so happy to be back with you this week for Accounting Conversations. This week I have a super exciting guest and a good friend and mentor of mine. He was actually one of the first people I did an informational interview with when I was back at BYU, Idaho. I have Kaden Cook, CPA and CMA with me today. Kaden, so happy to have you.
Thanks for having me, Chayton. This is really exciting what you got going on.
Yeah, the accounting profession is the place to be right now, and I'm excited to bring all these exciting insights to young accounting professionals. Um, so, do you want to give us a quick introduction, where you went to school, kind of where your first accounting job was? I know you started as a bookkeeper, which is kind of unique, so I'd love to hear more about that, and then where you are now.
Yeah, I'm your typical boring accountant. No, not really, but my mom and my dad both did accounting in college. So that's kind of where I got my start. I would go in on days I didn't have school sometimes and go um, help my dad enter invoices or whatever at his work. And that was kind of a good introduction that you didn't have to mow the lawn or be out in the heat to make money. That was my first indication it's better to earn it through your brain. But then I ended up doing this thing through if you want the full backstory, I ended up doing a program through high school called BPA. It's Business Professionals of America, and I did a
Hmm.
sort of Shark Tank there, and it was really cool. And I felt how much power it had to have performa financial statements there. I didn't have it for one of the competitions I did, and then that was their suggestion to me, and I went through it and like did a performa. This is my break even, like this is what it's gonna take, and it just was amazing how much that opened up their minds. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like I should do accounting. Like it's how you it's how you get business done. And so I went into that at Brigham Young University, Idaho, and I still live in the same town in Rexburg, Idaho, um, and kind of got my start from there. I had a friend that had a cousin. It's just weird connections, and I ended up being a bookkeeper, doing AR and AP for a tile business. They sell like tile for your house. From there, just had that for a while, and then got some internships. And I don't know how far you want me to go before.
Yeah,
Do you want me to just keep
as,
going?
yeah, as much detail as you want. We have a lot of
Okay.
students who are doing internships and who are just starting out. So,
Yeah, for sure. I think the hardest, just thinking about that too, the hardest one for me, I think, was trying to get that first in-office bookkeeping job, honestly. After that, things came a lot faster as you can say you have experience, but if you just that's probably the breakthrough moment, I think, is when you can get one that you can sit at a desk and get some office experience. From there, I COVID hit, and I was still in college, um, and I went to meet the firms at Brigham Young University, Idaho, and it's like a huge career fair. I would recommend it to everybody and to get super prepared for it because it's a big deal. I ended up Luckily we still had meet the firms and it was all virtual. And I ended up, instead of having to like fight for people, I got one-on-one interviews on through virtual interviews with the companies,
oh
like
my
10-minute
goodness.
slots, and it ended up being better. I ended up with more offers than I would have imagined out of that. Took a local tax internship. Thought it might be fun to try. Um, and that's where I kind of learned that I'm not super. I lied taxes, but it wasn't for me in the end. My lifestyle, I really like to ski, and so that was one of the big factors. Was winter skiing does not match up with tax season. And like I said, I saw my brother and my dad doing their thing, and so I decided industry was better. But I actually stayed at the same firm. They were had an up and coming CFO by the hour, fractional CFO type work, department um, that was mostly the accounting side, not as much of the CFO side. So I ended up being
Yeah.
kind of like a bookkeeper accountant there for a few years, and then I ended up moving to my current job, which I'm sure we'll get into. But now I'm at Summit CPA. Well, they merged into a bigger firm called Ander CPA, but Summit CFO is kind of the division that I'm in. We're fully remote, all of us, and we do fractional CFO work.
It's so cool, so exciting stuff. Something I would like you to dig into real quick. So I had some faculty at my school a couple weeks ago kind of not be very happy with me for seeking out a bookkeeping job. How would you say that your bookkeeping job benefited you for building that foundation of your accounting knowledge? Because I'm a firm believer that it's something that can really accelerate your career. Do you feel like doing bookkeeping and even those most basic accounting things has helped you become the accountant you are today?
I I really do. Yeah, I specialize in AR and AP, and that was a good experience for me because now I relate with the people that I work with. I work with a lot of bookkeepers, and I know um I mean you pick up little ins and outs of how to do it in certain, like in QuickBooks, you know how to do things, but even more than that, just knowing how the process runs, um, timing on payment and how collections go and all that just is an experience that it's part of running the business. If you're just looking at the year end financials once a year, then you kind of see it as more like a number and less like an operation, I would say. And
Yeah.
so I feel like it helped me that way is probably what I would say.
Okay.
I
Very
I would
cool.
recommend it. I can see where you probably don't want to stick there forever, but I mean that's never
Yeah.
the idea anyways. You're always trying to just grow your knowledge and get better. So
Yeah. So getting into that a little bit, you chose not to go into public accounting and do more um, accounting and CFO work. Why did you choose that? And maybe you can touch on a little bit. It feels like in school, tax and audit are kind of the only paths you're given, right? And any path you want after that kind of comes as a divergence off that path. So, how did you kind of skip audit and tax altogether, and what has that been like?
yeah, I kind of had an idea. I Our professors at my university all went Big Four, and they pushed really hard that was a goal. I kind of
Yeah,
didn't ever have that in my, like I never saw myself doing it. Was kind of the feeling. I have friends that are in it right now actually, and they like their jobs too. Um, but for me, what ended up happening was I was sitting in a tax meeting, and they had a lunch and learn at my internship, and one of the partners walks in and is like doing this lunch and learn, and she's like, I want to tell you about this other department we have, and just so you can sell it to your clients and all this. And she's like, we're doing CFO by the hour work. And I always saw myself in the very far future getting into industry eventually, even if I stayed in public. And so I kind of, it was like a light bulb moment that, oh my gosh, you can have public accounting and CFO work at at the same time. It was probably pretty typical for other people to know that, but it was kind of like a light bulb moment for me where it's like, oh, you can serve multiple clients and still not have to do audit or tax and still get to work with all the accountants next to you and have the same kind of people around you. And so, right. And the tax department didn't, they were like, you're crazy. They're just a bunch of bookkeepers over there. You don't want to go work over there. And I was like, well, this is just like where I want to go. So I don't know if that answers it, but
yeah, I love that, and I think so. If we can look outside of audit and tax and be able to see, virtual, not just virtual CFO work, but fractional CFO work and working in industry, and there's even CAS practices now, so cloud accounting practices. There's so many other options outside of just audit and tax. I think that would fix a lot of our pipeline issues if students knew that there was more to accounting than just audit and tax. But maybe I'm maybe I'm a little far on that, but that's how I think and how I feel. Um, so let's talk about your current position at Summit Virtual CFO. They are a super cool modern firm. Uh, it is amazing that you can work from Rexburg and you're doing CFO work for. I'm assuming you have clients all over the U.S.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm the only employee in Idaho, and I don't have any clients in Idaho. I have a few on the West Coast, which is kind of fun, but I work with about 10 or so clients, and they are all over the US. So are the CFOs that I work with. I work with about 6 or 7 different CFOs, and they range from, some of them live in California, Texas, Indiana, the West Coast, East Coast, all in between, and it's kind of fun. I've met them all one time. We get together every 6 months, and I've been here for about 10, so met all of them one time. We all got together in St. Louis, which is where the Anders CPA is. The Summit CFO kind of merged in with Anders, and then next month we're going to Las Vegas on a retreat, so that should be kind of fun too.
Wow, very cool. So, what makes Summit like different than your normal accounting firm? Like, how do hours compare? How does work life balance compare? And what are you doing every day there?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I was in this regional firm, and I was doing more, like, I would say more CIS work is what I would classify it as, which is outsourced accounting essentially. And I was looking for more of this advisory feel where you can you can be a little bit more part of the decision making, is what I would say. And the difference between outsourced accounting and CFO work, I'm convinced, is illustrated like this. I would say if they're going to hire somebody and they tell you after they hire them, then you're just an outsourced accountant. If they tell you, hey, I'm thinking about hiring this person, what does that look like for me? Then you're more your advisory. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Because you want to be, and that's my goal, is I want to develop the skills. I'm not all the way there. That's why I help these CFOs and stuff. I'm not up to that level yet, but I want to be in the decision making process, right? I want to help businesses with their finances. And so what kind of set them apart when I started, I found them through their podcast. So put a plug in for the Modern CPA Success Show. I was kind of just listening to stuff while I did my work, and I found out that they're they're just a few years ahead of the curve, is what I would say. Because I think you're right that this is where accounting's going, but they're ahead of the curve. So they started doing this kind of CFO work back in early 2000s. They went fully remote in 2013, which is pretty crazy to think about. That now it's like, if you had a fully distributed team, like, no big deal. But to go fully distributed in 2013, they're just a little bit ahead of the game, and they focus their entire offering around that. In the end, you can get a good forecast, you can get a CFO that you can have advisory with. Now there's accounting with that, because you got to be in the books to kind of know what's going on. But
yeah,
in the end, it's all about the advisory. A couple other things they do differently is they've done fixed fee billing for a long time. That's becoming pretty normal too, normalized. But they do weekly billing. So every Monday they draw on your account, and you pay your little fee, instead of having a bunch of work done for you and then getting the hours on the back end. It's a fixed fee every week, cancel at any time, kind of like a weekly subscription to your CFO.
So they have like no receivables. It's just straight like ACH pull every Monday.
Yeah, obviously I don't run the business either, but yeah, I mean that's the beauty of it is that you never are chasing your clients down. You're never having that bad conversation with them like, hey, when are you gonna pay us? We can't keep
Yeah.
going unless you. It's like, nope. We take the money on Monday, and if you don't want the services by the next Monday, you just say, hey, I need to pause this for a while, or we 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 scope up and down pretty easily too, because we'll say, hey, you for example, I was talking to a client that they may or may not lose a bookkeeper, um, and they were saying, hey, what does this look like for you guys to take this over for 2 months? And it was like, oh yeah, easy, like we'll up your fee for a couple months. You don't have to have a year engagement or anything. Like we'll just
Yeah.
up it and then we'll come back down. We'll just
Wow.
kind of form to what you need.
That's so cool. It gives them so much flexibility, and it's interesting what you're doing every day because from what it sounds like, you get to be a part of the operations of the business essentially because you're helping them build forecasts and giving them insights from their books, not just doing compliance, right?
Right. We kind of focus on four main offerings, I would say, is like we do a cash flow weekly. So I pull up their ins and outs and I forecast what they're going to have in and out. And so that they can see, when do I get a little pinch on cash? When do I really have to focus on receivables? Like, which I just think gives peace of mind for a business owner to know someone's looking at that. Nothing's creeping up on them. That's super surprising. Then we look at their pipeline. So we look at how much sales they're going to have. Um,
Wow.
and I go, like, some of them are project completion based. So I keep track. I have a running list of their projects and I know when they're going to complete them. That way we can forecast accurately, because we don't want to do like a forecast where it's just like add 5% on last month. You know what I mean? Like, that's good to a point, but doesn't, it's way less accurate is what I would say. You want to be like using actual drivers of like, what do projects look like? How many people do you have that do those projects, and flow it all the way down through the income statement.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That's awesome. Well, let's transition here. You
Okay.
just passed the CPA exam and you are officially a CPA as of January, right?
Officially CPA. Yep. Yep.
Very cool. And you're also a CMA.
I am also a CMA too. They uh, they go well together, I'd say.
Yeah,
It's good to
so
have them
so
done.
let's talk about that. I've seen a couple arguments on LinkedIn of CMA or CPA. Especially with pipeline issues, it seems like a lot more people are getting the CMA instead of the CPA. But you've also argued that both are great. So what are your thoughts and feelings there, and what has your experience been like having to pass, not just one big accounting exam, but having to do two?
Hmm. So I would say that the I got the CMA because I wanted the CMA, and I got the CPA because I felt like I had to get the CPA, is what I'd say. So just, and this might change over they're trying to make it, the CMA is trying to make their move and be more known, but people want to talk to, when you talk to clients, I've had clients say, hey, let me talk to the CPA. Like, if you're not a CPA,
Oh,
like, I don't want to talk to you. Like,
yeah.
so it's a trust thing. People trust CPAs. And so that's why I felt like it was a have to for my career, that if I was going to get respect as an accountant, I felt like it was just something I had to do. I don't know if I agree with that's how it has to be, but that's how I feel like it is right now. Um, but with that, if you're not gonna, like, especially not doing tax or audit, having a CPA, I feel like you want to be a CPA and something. You want to, like, for example, I've heard you've been taking some like coding classes through some of your shows, and I mean, we've talked a little bit about SQL and different things that you can learn. And I took some of those classes too, and I thought for a while that I would want to be like a CPA and like a data nerd kind of guy. but ended up that wasn't quite my strong suit as much as I wanted it to be. And so, but that's why I got the CMA, was to have that. And I wanted to be able to be in the business and help owners make decisions. And so I took both of those. I actually took the CMA first, because they offer a scholarship. If you're a student, you can go onto the IMA website and look for scholarships. And each 4-year university gets 10 scholarships where they'll pay for everything for you to take it, study materials. You don't
Oh
have
my
to
goodness.
no out-of-pocket cost. And what you need to do is get a teacher to recommend you for it, and that's it. So I went to one of my professors, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we have one other person that's doing this right now," because it's just, I don't know that it's well known or sought out. You can take your test before you graduate. You can't get the certification until after you have a bachelor's, but if you want to like pair your exams with your classes, then you could do that totally. And so that's why I took that one first, is because I had it all paid for. No 150 hour requirement, so I started there.
Oh, so that's awesome. And would you say the tests overlap at all? Like, did you gain value for studying for the CMA when you went back to take the CPA exam?
Yeah, you're right. So there are 2 exams on the CMA exam. The first one's like pretty heavy accounting based, is what I would say. It's like a mix of it's probably mostly the FAR exam, financial, for CPA, and so you can really like kind of double dip there a bit. And then the second one is pretty heavy and a little bit more into what was BEC, so the business
Okay.
one. I haven't seen what the discipline exams look like enough to know if there's very much overlap with those ones, but there are some like IT controls and other things that would probably overlap with the disciplines. So I would say it's like a broad discipline exam.
Okay. That's awesome. Great opportunity there for students. I'll drop it's the IMA, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I'll hook you up with the website after
okay.
this.
I'll leave that in the show notes for today so our students can check out that scholarship. Um, so obviously accounting is kind of at a crossroads right now. We have pipeline issues and different legislation changes and kind of the older generation of accountants is going to be moving on soon. Where do you see the future of accounting going, and why are you bullish on accounting, whereas a lot of people are, bearish on accounting as a whole?
Yeah, I think accounting's going a really good way. I think there will be some big changes, and it'll either affect you for a lot of good or a lot of bad, is what I would say. And I think the difference is going to be how not just being able to do the work, but being able to review the work and make the decisions. Because if you're in tax, like eventually AI is going to be able to fill out a tax return. That's not going to be a problem anymore, right? Like it's going to be able to do the simple filling out, but the strategy is going to be still placed on people for as long as I can think. And the same thing with like if you're just adding transactions from the bank, that's going to get taken over. But if you can review and you can help make decisions and say this looks good, like you can do a high level thing, but that requires that you understand the whole process. So I would say that to keep your mind high level is pretty important right now, and to be able to get into these like automated tools. I'm trying to start using ChatGPT as much as I can. I haven't found as many opportunities as I would like, but especially in my word-based things, like what I'll do is I'll have like a voice to text app, kind of like Siri on my computer. I'll click record. I'll have it record me. It always messes up whatever I put. I put it in ChatGPT. It formats it, makes it a nice email. I don't have to do anything. I throw that out, and if it says anything that I don't like, then I say, hey, change it. Like, this is how I would change it, and then it like remembers that, right? Remembers my tone and everything.
AI is the future. It's I always say you got to get on the train or the train's going to run you over. But maybe that's the wrong metaphor. I'm kind of addicted to listening to. I don't know if you're familiar with Jason Stat's podcast, Jason Daly. Um, he talks about cloud accounting and running your own firm and a bunch of different things. And his big thing has been AI, and he's got some really cool accounting AI stuff. Maybe I'll leave his show in the show notes as well. Um, so we networked a while ago now. I was a freshman. You were one of the first informational interviews I ever did. I know you've done some really cool informational interviews and gotten to know some cool accountants. What recommendations do you have for accountants who want to get to know, or for accounting students who maybe want to start networking and want to start having informational interviews and getting to know people who are doing high level things so that they can learn from them? Do you have any like specific advice that accounting students could use to get started with that and jumpstart that?
Yeah, for sure. I think you just want to find people you're interested in and see if you can get a hold of them. I would definitely recommend getting on a call, not just like trying to chat them the whole time, right? Because you want to build that relationship or meet them, and I think if you especially draw on alumni of your college or things like that. I know my alumni page has a list of people. You can go to accounting and it has a list of people you can call, and they're all willing to. So you look up what they do, and you can call one of them. But I think for the most part, just reaching out to people you're interested in. I even forgot about some of these, but I mean, I talked to a guy that was in audit, and then like I said, I wanted to become a data nerd kind of for a little bit, and I had an informational interview with him. He's like a financial analyst at a big tech company, and he went from audit to there, but he went to my college, and that's why he responded to me.
Yeah.
And he kind of lined out what he does for work, and I thought that was pretty cool. It didn't end up being for me, but people are willing to talk back, I think, if you're willing to reach out really genuinely.
I think that's the key word there, is being genuine. You don't want to make it sound like some automated or chat GPT message that you're just sending to like 40 people on LinkedIn. And then also alumni, it's such a great resource because you already have that connection. Um, it makes it so easy for them to talk to you, and you already have something in common. I really love that. I know. So we didn't talk about this before, but I wanted to ask you a question or two about this. So you did a data analytics minor at BYU Idaho, correct?
Pretty close. It's a cluster. It ended up being like a few classes short, but they have you basically do accounting and specialize in something, either business
Yeah.
or data, or there's a couple different ones. And I ended up doing a lot of some data science classes.
So have you been able to use that with accounting? And if so, do you have any recommendations for what platforms students should get familiar with? I mean, I know Excel is, you got to get familiar with Excel and you got to learn macros, but what outside of that, is useful in the accounting world?
Yeah, I'd say macro or like the Excel and all that is number one for sure. That's what I mostly use in my job. In my previous job, I actually got into some Power BI. I think SQL is going to become important. Now, I've kind of, maybe it's just an excuse, but I've kind of put the brakes on trying to like pursue that too much because I was doing the CPA. And then also, I just think that we're going to have to kind of evolve and become more like that, but we're going to have so much help with from AI that we're going to be able to do it. But I think knowing how data pulls into like an accounting system, for example, is really important. It's something I didn't understand, but if you know how things talk to each other, then that's kind of how where I think those advantages come in, I guess.
So like API calls and stuff like that?
Yeah, and I don't think like I don't know how to write them, but I know how I am starting to learn how accounting softwares think, right? Like if I put a bill into the system or bill.com, like how is that going to transfer over? Where am I going to see it pop up? What if I'm not seeing it, then what's happening? You know what I mean? Like things like that.
Yeah.
It helps you troubleshoot without having to just know those specific things inside and out.
Yeah. I love that. I just started an internship with a cloud accounting firm, and I'm like literally like days into it and just trying to figure out how stuff flows in and out of zero and how it gets, how bank statements get from where to here, and how all the documents get uploaded via our document software. And it kind of like twists your brain a little bit when you're first starting out. So I definitely see how there's huge value in doing that. Um, so I had one last question for you. Um, what's your best advice for accounting students right now? And maybe also touch on for students who are kind of on the fence about accounting. Maybe they're in intermediate accounting too, like I am, and they just did diluted earnings per share and it almost killed them. Uh, what advice do you have for students right now?
Yeah, I think, by the way, that diluted earnings per share killed me on the CPA exam too. That was a rough one. So it sticks around for a little longer at least, and you may or may not use it. But I just think thinking high level and knowing that you're not pigeonholed into being a numbers cruncher is probably pretty important. I think accounting just opens up the door to, I mean, I know people that go from accounting to sales to, you know what I mean? Like it's all about learning rules and being able to expand your mindset to be able to accept those kind of things, to think very logically and being able to take a problem, attack it, solve it, put a plan, you know what I mean? Work together with others. So I think even in school, or if you're at a job where it's not exactly what you want to do, there's those skills that you're looking to be able to develop that that are beyond just the debits and credits, I guess, is what I would say. And so just to push through the intermediate intermediate accounting classes and try to stay high level of the skills that you're developing, more than just the subject matter.
I love that insight, because it's so easy to just like feel like the classes are so hard and it's like this just applies to one little situation. But I think it's you're learning the patterns and the way that accounting just generally works consistently, because it seems to repeat itself even if the rules are different. The principles and the way you work through problems can be pretty similar throughout different accounting. um, I totally forgot. I really wanted to ask you this. What's your best advice for the CPA exam? Because you were working full time, you're married, you ski, you have other responsibilities. How did you do that? How did you survive it? And what's your biggest advice for people who are about to go take it?
Yeah, I think everybody has their little nuances of how they like to do it, but honestly, I knew people that like would study for 1 week for like 14 hours a day, and that wasn't for me. I say consistency is how you do it. I think if you start missing days, you start forgetting things. And so I was very consistent, even if it was only for an hour or an hour and a half a day instead of 2 or 3 hours like my plan was. But I held myself very accountable. I kept track of every day how much I was studying. That way I knew if I was making the recommended study times. I wasn't exactly holding to that, but just to give myself the peace of mind. And then the other thing is just to focus on the practice tests. I think
Okay.
you hear that a lot, but focusing on the practice tests is going to tell you what they're really looking for, not just and being able to not just know which one's the right answer, but know why the other ones are wrong. I would, even if I got it right, I would still look at it and look at the other answers, and it'll give an explanation. A lot of times the study softwares will give an explanation of why they're wrong. And so I would spend a lot of time there.
I love that. Sound advice. Well, Kaden, I really appreciate your time here today. Um, you're a huge inspiration to me. I've loved getting to see your journey and your progression. When I met you, you were still at Cooper and Norman, and now you're a CPA. Now you're at Summit, and it's been so cool to see your progression, and that's just gotten me even more excited for accounting. So thank you for sharing that with me and for sharing all the insights that you left with us today. So I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It feels fun to have someone just really just one step ahead is all on the path down the road. We're both pretty early in our careers and journeys, so it's fun to have a conversation.
It's so exciting. Golden age of accounting is here. We get to be a part of it. So it's so fun. Um, Hope you all enjoyed this episode. Please share it with your friends, your fellow interns, your fellow students, and look forward to talking with you all next week. So thank you so much.